We have some awesome panelists with us here today, all representing different size carriers. So our large carrier representation is Jessie Burnette. Our medium carrier representation is Sadie Church, and small carrier representation is going to be Bobbie Patterson. So we have a couple of sections where we're going to go over different topics, and these panelists will kind of talk to each of these questions that we have laid out in regards to their process and best practices. So the first question is going to be for Jessie. What does the communication look like between you and your drivers when scheduling their orientation and during the onboarding process?
Yeah, I think Sadie and I were talking about this earlier, and really for us, we just try to meet the drivers where they are. And so if we've got a driver who mainly does text messaging versus email, there's a lot that we do through polls, and so really just meeting the drivers where they are when it comes to communicating orientation. But we try to, even if it's not where they are, we try to make sure that we're hitting them in all angles, right? And so sometimes sending out that email confirmation and then the text message, and then also we have a live link for orientation. And so just making sure, again, you guys probably have the drivers who ghost you from orientation, and that way we can make sure, we've sent it all the different ways. We've talked to you, we've emailed you, texted you, and so we just try to make sure that every single way possible we're reaching out to them.
Yeah, awesome. So this question kind of goes to Sadie and Bobbie. Who does your driver meet in person when they arrive at your orientation?
So they meet several people. The recruiters meet them in orientation, welcome them as soon as they come in. We do things a little differently. So our orientation is not ran by just one person. Every session of orientation is ran by the department that session of orientation is covering. So when they have the safety portion of orientation, they have two of the leaders of the safety department, and then they also meet with their dispatchers on day one as well. So they get to meet a lot of different people from every department.
Awesome.
So ours is kind of like that, but there's only two of us. There's Braxton and I. So we try to meet them, take them out to the orientation, and they have an orientation coordinator. And so she answers kind of the safety side, orientation questions, but anything that we've discussed on the phone, through text message, email, anything like that, we try to make them very comfortable in knowing that we have told them the truth, that we're gonna carry through with what we have told them, because their misconception a lot of times is that the recruiters lie to them and then they get there and it's totally different. So we just try to make them very comfortable in that on the first day.
Yeah, transparency is key. So Sadie, who facilitates your driver orientation, and how are they trained or prepared to welcome drivers, answer questions, and guide the onboarding process?
Yes, I touched on that briefly. We do have two orientation coordinators, and they make sure that orientation's running on time, all of the presenters are there on time, they keep the flow going all throughout orientation. But yeah, again, they meet with people from every single department all the way through orientation. We want to make sure that they at least know someone in every department by the time they leave.
Awesome. So the second section is we're going to be talking a little bit more about meeting expectations and making impressions with the driver. We know first impressions are so critical to the driver experience. What are you doing to ensure that you're meeting driver expectations? Jessie, I'll let you kick this one off.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that we're doing to meet driver expectations, whether it's making sure that the information the recruiter has is critical, making sure that information is the correct information, and so working with operations all the time. One of the things is, in recruiting, we think that we know what the drivers are going to get and what to expect, and then if it could be that one time, but 6 months down the road or a year down the road, the information changes, and operations doesn't usually give us that information, so we have to constantly ask for that. And so we have meetings with our operations team frequently to make sure we're on the same page and we're giving that expectation. And then just making sure that that first impression when we meet that driver is a positive one. These drivers, as you guys all know, we pretty much all offer the same thing when it comes to what we offer. We've got trucks, you're out on the road, you're out for a week or two or three at a time. But it really comes down to making sure that when we do finally get that driver to show up, that we're treating them like a little golden nugget. And so that first impression when that driver shows up, whether it's the hotel, whether it's that orientation, a little kit that when they arrive, all those things to us are really important.
And the dog bandanas
Yeah,
that you do,
yes,
that I'm totally
yes.
stealing that idea.
So we started asking our drivers, for the hotel reasons. We've got 2 different hotels. So we're pet friendly. All of our, well, not all of our hotels, but all of our orientations and our drivers can have a pet in their truck, but not all of our hotels will take a pet. And so we have to ask them up front if they have a pet. And if they do, we now have a special list. And so the orientation coordinators will make sure there's a little dog bandana waiting on their desk when they arrive. So
I love that.
it's cute.
That's a good idea.
So for-
Bobbie, what do you guys do to ensure that you are meeting driver expectations?
Kind of the same thing. We make sure that our drivers do not room with anyone else, that the hotel is definitely taking care of them. We make sure that they get their rental cars on time, that Enterprise is not letting them down there either. And we also, once they get on the yard, we try to discuss with them like what kind of truck that they were told that they were going to get, and to make sure that we follow up and get what they were expecting.
Yeah, absolutely. What areas of your onboarding process do you feel stand out to most incoming drivers? Sadie?
We put them in a very nice hotel. We travel them any way they want to come in, so rental cars, flight, stuff like that. They stay at a jury inn, so that we want to make sure all their meals are provided while they're there. So the hotel that we use provides breakfast and dinner. We provide lunch, so they're taken care of. Drivers often come in and say, "That's the nicest hotel I've ever stayed in." So they appreciate that.
Awesome. Jessie, how do you approach situations where the driver doesn't feel as though recruiting properly represented the details of the position?
I think you'll forever have that. My recruiter didn't quite give you the correct information, or operations has that, recruiters lying to the drivers to get them here. In fact, these drivers, again, they're talking to a lot of different companies. And you can do everything you can. You can send them out the links, you can make sure that you're putting it in writing, but when they show up, they're still confused. They have that idea of this is really kind of a blend of all the companies they've talked to, or maybe it's even 2 or 3, but they're blending that information together. And so what we've, used to be, well, a recruiter lied to me, okay, let's get them on the phone and have that conversation. And we've evolved now, and so what we do now is, it doesn't really matter what the wrong impression was, it's let's correct it and make sure that they understand what it is going forward. Hey, I'm really sorry, Mr. Driver, that's not quite the expectation, but let's make sure you do understand what we have to offer, because this isn't it. And so it's really about just making sure that they're on the same page going forward.
Awesome. Okay, so this next section we're going to be talking about making connections and building driver relationships. How do you facilitate connections between the driver and the recruiter or a driver manager? Bobbie, you want to kick this one off?
So we make sure that the recruiter that spoke with that driver is in touch with that driver as soon as they hit the yard. Whichever one of us brought them in, that we talk to them, we reassure them again that they're getting what they were told. We also make sure that they get to speak with everyone in the company. Most of the time, they even get to meet our owner. So they feel very at home. We are a smaller company, so we do have that ability to let them speak with everyone in payroll, everyone in operations. They get to meet most of all of the driver managers, so that if someone's out that day and they're going to have to deal with another driver manager, that they are comfortable with who they're speaking with. Also, as a driver advocate, I try to make sure that our drivers, we check on them randomly, like every 30, 60, 90 days once they do get there.
Awesome. Sadie, what about you guys?
Yeah, ours is similar. The recruiters welcome the drivers in orientation as soon as they get there, so they can kind of, put a face to the name. And then they follow up with them as well.
Great. Sadie, what do you do to facilitate relationships with payroll, maintenance, safety, et cetera, and kind of retain your drivers?
Yeah, so again, in orientation, they get exposed to every single department, so that they know who they can go to in every department, who to seek for help for whatever reason, just kind of helping them find the right people when there is a problem, so they know who to go to.
Yeah. Jessie, what about you guys?
Very similar. We want to make sure, so kind of the evolution of Hirschbach, we've gone from, a couple hundred trucks when I started 12 years ago to about 3,000 now. And so that evolution has changed for us. We want to make sure we hold on to them. We know that first 90 days is very critical of making sure that we're holding on to a driver. And there's a lot of things that do go wrong and can go wrong within the 90 days, but if they know the right people to hang on to call and talk to be able to resolve those issues, it makes a big difference for that driver. And so we have kind of a touch-based system, and it's developed over time. It used to be like a spreadsheet. It was a binder once upon a time. It was an actual paper binder we'd pass around, but there's different touch bases that we would like to do with the driver, whether it's a 1 day, a 3 day, a 5 day. And so it kind of goes from department to department. Now, thank goodness we've got it all built in a workflow where it's kind of triggers for us and tells the department, okay, your 1 day call is ready, your 3 day call is ready. But the nice thing too is we can compile that information so we're all on the same page. So I know if this driver and I'm talking to him at day 15, he's already talked to payroll, he's got his first paycheck, he's talked to operations, he's talked to maintenance and logs, and I can tell if there are any issues so we can get ahead of it before that driver does leave. So that's, it's an evolution over time, but there's no really, you can start it without having that process in place. You can start it anything from a binder to an Excel sheet, whatever you need to.
Great. Okay, so the next section is talking about recruiting and retention. Bobbie, what is your process for assigning or choosing equipment, and how have your drivers responded to that process?
So we usually talk to our drivers on the phone, and of course, we have lease purchase company and owner ops. So, we know what they're coming in for. We kind of know what equipment they want because we do sell older trucks and newer trucks. So we kind of get all of that information together before they get there. We do try to have certain trucks ready for those drivers once they get on the yard. We do not let them pick their trucks, but if, per se, they go out there and they just do not like the truck, they just do not want it, we do that early in the morning on the second day so that way we can give them another option.
Yeah, Jessie, what do you guys do?
I would love to say they can pick their trucks. I mean, recently it's pretty tight on trucks for us right now. And we have just a couple different brands, and so recruiting will say, here's the 2 options you're probably going to get. They're all going to be 3 years or newer, and they're all spec'd out the same on the inside. We do occasionally have the drivers who say, I will only drive this truck, right? And so the recruiting team can work with our leasing team to make sure that truck is held for that driver. But again, equipment's pretty tight right now, so if you have a driver who's saying, I am adamant I will only drive this truck, we're just honest and say, the chances are you're not going to get into that truck. Do you want to wait, or do you want to come in now maybe and swap out later? But it's pretty tough.
Yeah. Sadie, how do you touch base with your drivers after orientation is completed?
So we have a person dedicated to retention calls. So they follow a call schedule to check in on the drivers. And then we have a retention group. And as soon as we're alerted that there's an intervention, someone from the retention group will reach out to that driver.
Awesome.
And we also send out surveys as well, monthly surveys, and then to all of our fleet just for pulse check.
Awesome. Bobbie, what do you guys do?
We kind of do the same thing. So we reach out every 30, 60, 90 days. We also, if operations is telling us that a driver seems to be agitated with them, we work with operations on a daily basis. So they will give us that report in the mornings, and we try to reach out and see if there's something that we can do, any way that we can help. Is it just a frustration with a driver manager? If so, we try to change their driver managers. So we try to work on it really early on. Retention is a big thing right now, so we focus a lot on that.
Awesome. Jessie, how about you guys?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. We have kind of that triggering event for the recruiters to call, but that's kind of one of the things because you do have such a great first impression and experience, and the hotel's great, their food is great. When the drivers graduate in orientation, they're first getting into their trucks, we encourage the recruiters to call them. It's called Follow-Up Friday, and they love it so much because they don't let them go home until it's done. But Follow-Up Friday allows them to help celebrate that moment of getting your truck, getting going, starting to make money with us, and they're typically pretty excited. It's also when we strike for referrals. That referral conversation is, hey, you had a great experience at Hirschbach. Bring your friends over here too. Who else do you know? And most of the time, the conversations go really well.
Awesome. All right, next section, actionable tips and takeaways. Do you have any tips for carriers where there are limited employee resources for managing the recruiting and onboarding from start to finish? Jessie.
I would say, groups like this, right? And this is where you learn your knowledge from. Working with peers, finding out what we're doing, trying to help each other out. Again, we've got ideas, we can work together, and it may not work for every carrier, but being able to share them with each other is huge. And this is kind of where I've learned everything, is coming to conferences like this and working with people in this industry. Without this, I would not be able to do what we're doing now. So thanks to all of you.
Absolutely. If you had to give one piece of advice to a new recruiter or employee responsible for onboarding drivers, what would it be, Sadie?
Spend time talking to your drivers. Spend as much time as you can talking to your drivers. Find out what their pain points are. Find out why they chose your company, right? What they like about it, what they think is the best part of their job. That helps you. You'll always know what's important to your drivers. That'll help you sell the position as well to other drivers. Like, hey, our drivers love this about our company. Yeah, spend time talking to your drivers.
What about you, Bobbie?
The same thing, but I would also say just make sure you always have the correct information and that you're giving your drivers the correct information, because I think that's really important on retention. If you're telling them the truth coming in and they feel like they have that relationship with you and there's honesty from the beginning, I think you have a better chance of keeping them.
Absolutely. Jessie?
Yeah, along the same lines, be open and honest with the drivers, and if they want, something that you don't have, be honest with them. Most of the time, if you're talking to the drivers and you truly know what they're looking for, you may not have all the things, but if you've got 2 of the 3 things that they're looking for, that's a win. And then again, when they have those frustrating moments, if you know that person, you know that driver, when they have those moments that they're frustrated, go back to the reasons that they do like your company and remind them, hey, we've got these things, we'll take care of you, and we're still here for you. So again, I think at the end of the day, the drivers are just people, and they want to feel like they're part of your team and part of your family.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to open it up to you guys to ask some questions to our awesome panelists. First question, how are payroll and benefits explained during onboarding? Anybody in particular want to take that one?
I'll take it.
Go ahead.
So our payroll department comes in and explains to them. They are very adamant that no one speak to them about their paychecks or any of their benefits or anything except for payroll. So we give them a sheet at the beginning, a binder, that gives everyone's email, phone number. They have the billing department to turn in their bills and their payroll. So that being said, she comes in and has a 45-minute conversation with them about the whole process.
That's awesome. What rewards and incentives have been the most impactful in retaining your drivers? Jessie, you want to take that one?
We do, I think a lot of companies do kind of that safety bonus, and there's a lot of rewards. So we've got kind of a longer term program too for our drivers. So we've got, of course, the sign-on bonus, we've got the stay bonus, but we also offer like a 2-year reward bonus where we pay them $5,000 once they're here on their 2-year anniversary. And so again, for a driver to think 2 years down the road it's a long time, but for the drivers who actually get that and they get a $5,000 check, they can take that and go buy something, and we ask them, like, hey, what did you buy? What did you use that for? Was it for your kid's college? Was it for a down payment for your truck? Like, whatever those things are. And then, again, that's a little bit reminder for them of, okay, this is why I should stay with Hirschbach, because they reward their drivers. And so that one's been, it's a little bit new for us, but it's very impactful.
What do you guys do, Sadie?
So we do similar, right? So we have safety bonuses, things like that. But we've also started doing some recognition things. So we just last week rolled out our Elite Fleet, which is our top performing safety and miles. And of those, we had a big ceremony. They all get special decals for their trucks that says, Elite Fleet driver. And then we're also rolling out our Million Mile, and then our safety crew, and all of their names will go on a wall of fame. So just some recognition things so that drivers can be recognized for positive behaviors.
That's awesome. How do you handle drivers whose drug test results are delayed or in further testing? Do you provide lodging and meals while they wait?
I'll take that one. 'Cause
Okay.
I just dealt with that this week. So we keep them in the hotel. We don't make them stay in the truck. Obviously, most of them don't bring bedding with them. So we keep them in the hotel. That way we're making sure that their meals are there. And we pay them $200 a day for every day that they're sitting and waiting.
Oh, wow. Okay, awesome. Jessie, what do you guys do?
Yeah, we just keep an orientation. So until they're done, ready and clear, they're still kind of considered in our orientation process. They're still getting meals and orientation pay and all the same things. And so, yeah, we keep them there.
What about you, Bobbie?
We did the same.
Awesome. How often do you update your onboarding materials?
At least quarterly, I think.
All the time.
Mhm.
It's constant refreshing, updating, making sure. And again, part of that for us too is making sure we're going back to operations, we're working with orientation, we're in different locations. And so making sure, and there's sometimes we check a link and it's like, it's got the wrong information. Let's go back and re-update it. But it's constant for us.
In what ways have you seen onboarding change the most during your time in the industry? I'll let all of you go on this one.
Well, I have seen that a lot of people were coming in just for the sign-on bonuses, and they were kind of jumping company to company, so we kind of changed things at our company. I decided to kind of push the sign-on bonus out just a little bit. We were giving it all at once within 2 weeks, so we kind of do a 2 weeks, a 4 weeks, and then after 60 days, just to kind of cut that out, because we seen after COVID, you know, there's just a lot of jumping for bonus to bonus to bonus. So that was one of the big things for me.
For us, the difference for the onboarding changes, I mean, really, I go back 12 years ago, and I feel very old now, but back then, to get a driver to fill out an application, they really had to be bought in, they really had to be committed. I had to find on I-29 where they're driving and find which truck stop they're stopping at and fax an application. They had to pay for the application and pay to send it back to me. Those guys were committed. Nowadays, drivers can get jobs and they can have 100 offers in 10 minutes. And so for us, it's more about making sure that we truly sell what we have and find out what that person's really looking for. And so for us, it's been one of the biggest things that we've kind of evolved over time, and we're constantly trying to stay ahead of what is going to keep us up to date with the drivers that we need.
And for me, I think it's just the technology that we use, you know, having virtual orientations if necessary. We have a California fleet, so we do all of those virtually. I mean, in the past, we would have been flying those in, but I think just the technology.
Awesome. How do you measure and evaluate the success of your onboarding program?
Retention. It's all about retention for us. And so looking at, you know, trying to, if the driver's going to leave, trying to make sure that they don't leave within that first 30 or 60 days, and now it's 90 days that we're looking at, okay, now we need to push it out to 120 days. And so, you know, there's tipping points of events that happen when a driver's ready to leave a company. But again, if we can get ahead of those issues and ahead of those problems and make sure that we're trying to make sure they have the right resources to solve them, or they know the right people to go to, and that way it's not such a big event. We've seen kind of our drivers who leave us, they're not in that first 30 to 60 days, they're getting farther and farther out, which is great for us.
We do first impression surveys over all aspects. So how was the hotel? How was orientation? Did it go the right speed? How was the truck selection process? How was your equipment?
Awesome.
Yeah, we do those as well. We make sure that we talk to our drivers too and tell them, if you see something that someone is doing and you feel like that we should implement that here, of course we're a smaller carrier, so we can't do a lot of things that the larger companies can do, but if you see something new, give us a call, let us know within reason. We'd be glad to implement that. I find that we get a lot of our best information from our drivers because that's who we're trying to reach. So we've been doing a lot of like videos and photos and stuff our drivers are sending to us that we're using on our social media and marketing.
It's a great idea. I think the drivers also, they're the ones out there and they have great ideas, and if they can bring them to us, we will absolutely use them and give them credit for them too.
Yes.
So it's huge.
Yes.
I hear quite a bit about the responsibilities of the recruiting and onboarding team. How much ownership is accepted by operations?
I'll let you
Are
answer
there
that,
any
Sadie.
operations folks here?
We actually, We have weekly operations recruiting meetings. I'm very much of the opinion that recruiting is a support department for operations, right? We're the support team for operations. So if we're not meeting their needs, then we're not doing our jobs, and then it's a bad experience for the drivers all the way around. So we stay in constant contact with operations. The recruiters have instant access to operations anytime they have questions.
I think this is something we've struggled with over time. It's gotten better, and it's getting better. Part of it, though, is, you ask operations, what kind of driver do you want? 10 years of work history, perfect driving record, no accidents, no incidents. It's like, those are water walkers. These are, unicorns. There's like 2 out there. I'll find them for you. But a part of it, too, is, we want to make sure we're bringing, here's our hiring criteria, and this is what we're going to hire. And for them, sometimes it's not quite enough. And so we do our meetings every single month. We started implementing those to make sure they understand, okay, hey guys, this month, we had 17,000 applications that came in, and here's what we're getting, right? And so for them, I don't think they truly understood what it took to get a driver in. And so once we started having those meetings, and now they understand, okay, yeah, they're not waiting, standing over there on the side, waiting for you guys to say, hey, come on in, here's a truck, pick one out. But that's kind of the perception for a while, but now that we do those monthly meetings, things are getting a lot better, so.
Yeah, we stay in constant contact with operations too. And what I find is communication. We need to communicate well and a lot, because sometimes they promote within. So what was open yesterday is not open today. We have someone scheduled for that position that you told us the schedule for, and then the position is no longer available. So it's just very important. So we started every morning going and we speak with operations every morning, a little meeting to make sure that we're all up to date.
Love that. What areas are you finding you need the most support in regarding onboarding? Sadie?
It's a tough question.
Yeah. They're
I think
just that good.
No. So I think for us, it's the transition from leaving orientation and being seated in the trucks. That's just because right now the truck situation is so tight. I mean, we've pretty much been out of trucks since May. So that's been the biggest struggle.
I think for us, it might be more of going back into the operations side of, okay, we brought you a driver, they have experience, here's where they are. And the driver managers, they have a lot of drivers on their board, but they need to make sure they're taking time with that new hire. And they haven't been driving for our fleet. They've been driving, but not for us. Do they understand how to log into our system? Do they understand how to accept one of our loads? And just really working with them. And so our recruiting team does a nice job of making sure until that driver feels comfortable, they'll still stay in touch with that driver. And so if there's issues with the driver manager doesn't answer my calls, okay, we'll try to message. This driver manager likes to message better than answering their phone. And just making sure that we help mend that relationship until that driver feels like he's on a normal playing field and he's, an experienced driver with us. So
I agree with that too. So we started a mentorship also, so that some of our drivers that have been there a while and they know if there's overnight stay, shipper issues, receiver issues, things like that, that they can speak with the mentors to kind of help to take a little bit off of the operations side, because they do call them like their best friends. So if we can get the mentors to help a little more, then operations can pay a little more attention to the real needs.
What % of applicants get scheduled for orientation but don't show up? Bobbie?
50%. But I mean, that's with us. It's kind of been what it is. If we schedule 15, we may get 6 or 7 that show up, and they will confirm 5 times, and they don't show up. But we do make sure that we do the video calls, we do the text messaging, we call them, we try to reach out in every way that we can throughout the week. So what I found is, I believe, like she said earlier, they speak with so many different companies, they get lost in who they even have orientation with.
I think they tell a lot of us yes at the same time. Yep, I'll come to your orientation. Yes, I'll be in yours. And yes, I'll be in yours.
Yes.
And we implemented, we used to have a terrible no-show rate as well. It's still not great. Somebody's grandma always dies. But
3 times.
never, yep. Yep, different grandma. But it always happens, right? And so what we put on our orientation, and it's kind of hard to say this to recruiters too, like if your driver no-shows, you can never reschedule him ever again. And it goes into my file, my name goes on it, do not ever touch this driver. And sometimes, you know, depending on the trends, we might make an exception for them. But just putting that like in bold letters on their orientation, like, hey, if you are not going to make it, let us know.
Right.
Like, let us get a refund for a flight or whatever we can do, but don't just no-show. If you completely no-show, we'll never bring you again.
We do exactly the same, but we've been pretty fortunate. I would say we average less than 1 a month for no-shows.
That's great.
That's fantastic.
That's really good. Do you give your employees homework during orientation?
Yes. So they do their Luma videos at the hotel at night.
So we do the Luma during orientation, and so we have our online videos for our orientation. Our orientation is kind of a hybrid. You know, we went to all in person, then we went all virtual, and now we're kind of doing a hybrid where half is in person and half is online. And so they can work ahead, but we do give them classroom time during the day to work through the videos too. And so we kind of have a hybrid model. They don't actually do a whole lot on our side unless they're just really not great at computers, and they need to go back to the hotel and get caught up. But
Yeah, that's kind of the same with us. We have plenty of orientation time for them to do what they need to do, but some are not tech savvy, so they finish it at the hotel.
How much pre-work do you have drivers do before coming in? Do you see yourself moving to a mostly remote orientation in the future?
we don't. I mean, we like the face-to-face. I think we have a great brand and culture, and part of that is for our drivers to see that culture that we're building. I mean, every location's a little bit different. We started with just a couple orientation locations, and now we have 6 or 7, but there's a lot. And so making sure for us, streamlining and making sure they have a positive experience in every location. Because again, most of our drivers are over the road. They're out for 3 weeks at a time. And so that one time that we get to see them in orientation is our chance to have a really good first impression with them, but also set the stage of, okay, this is what it's like to work here, and go tell everybody else about it. So we like having it.
I agree. I like having it in person. Just that human element. I think that's really important to me.
Yeah, definitely. Us too. I don't see our boss is very one-on-one. He likes face-to-face. So I don't see us going
I'll say
forward.
there are some times too where we think this driver's fantastic and he looks like a water walker on paper, and then you meet him and you're like, no, this guy's not. No, gotta go.
Yep.
That's why we
Absolutely.
started doing the video chats. You know, I mean, you could tell a lot by a person speaking to them on
Yes.
FaceTime.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep. Do your recruiters receive retention bonuses on the drivers they hire? If so, how much per driver?
Ours don't know.
Ours do.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ours do not.
Okay.
I'm not going to disclose
She's not
that.
gonna.
Sorry.
She's not gonna say how much. All right. Big round of applause for our panelists. Thank you guys so much.